How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Kuf Beis. Daf 102 of Masechta Ksubis. This one's a hard one actually, but then I think it might get easier, like tomorrow. Alright, we're going to start the 12th parak of Masechta Ksubis. Talking about a situation, kind of like, I don't know, mizonos and making conditions and witnesses and documents and all sorts of stuff like that. Okay. So we're going to start in Daf Kuf Aleph Amud Beis at the new parak. Hanosei Seisha. So if a fellow marries a woman, Ufaska Imo Kidei Sheyazon Es Bita Chamesh Shanim, and he makes a deal that he'll pay for her daughter's groceries for 5 years. Right? She had a daughter from another marriage, and he says, "Okay, let's get married, and I will support your daughter from that previous marriage for 5 years." Okay, so he's got to pay for her groceries for 5 years. Niseis le'acher. Now they get divorced and she marries somebody else. Right, the mother, right, the wife now is somebody else's wife. Ufaska imo kadesh yazun es bidachamishanim, and she makes the same deal with the second fellow. That okay, let's get married, but support my daughter from a previous marriage for 5 years. Chayv lazuno chamishanim. So the second husband also is required to support this daughter for 5 years. Now, the first person who had committed to 5 years, he can't say, look, if I'm married to her mother, so I'll pay for 5 years. But if I'm no longer married to her mother and now she's married to somebody else, I'm not still paying for her food. No, you can't say that. No, he's got to bring the food to wherever her mother is, and he continues paying for the food. And similarly, the two husbands now can't say, well, let's just chip in. Right? I see that you committed to 5 years, and now I'm married to her. I also committed to 5 years, and we're overlapping. So why don't we just each put in 50%? No, one person provides her with food, and the other one gives her the value of the food. So she gets double. One person gives her the food, the other one gives her money. Nises, if the daughter now gets married, habal nosin la mizonis, so the husband gives her mizonis because now she's married. So her husband pays for her groceries. They nosin la deme mizonis, and they give her money, right? They give her, they're still on the hook, right? They committed to 5 years, they still have to pay the money. Mesu, if the husbands die, right? These two people who committed to 5 years die. So their daughters, right? These husbands' daughters, their mazonos come from nechasim b'nei chorin. They can't go to the kruchis and chap back around property for their mazonos. But this daughter, who they had both committed to in the ksuba to pay for 5 years, she can even go to the kruchis and say, give me back the land. We got to pay for my food because that was written in the shtar, in the document. She's like a creditor. So now, if these husbands were smart, they would write, they would say, look, I'm happy to support your daughter for 5 years as long as we're still married. But if we get divorced, I'm no longer paying for her food. Says the Gemara, Itmar was stated that if Reuven says to Shimon, or let's say this, Shimon says to Reuven, I owe you 100 zuzes. Rabbi Yochanan Omar Chayv, so Rabbi Yochanan says, okay, well, Shimon owes Reuven 100 zuzes. V'rish Lakish Amapoter, Rish Lakish says Shimon does not owe Reuven 100 zuzes. Hechidami, now what's the case? If Shimon said to two witnesses, you are my witnesses, look, I'm admitting to Reuven that I owe him 100 zuzes, my time with Rish Lakish, the Kapoter, why would Rish Lakish say he's Potter? You appointed two witnesses to watch his admission. And if he didn't appoint two witnesses, well, my time with Rabbi Yochanan to come a chayiv. So why does Rabbi Yochanan say that Shimon owes Reuven 100 zuzis? I mean, there's no witnesses; it's entirely verbal. So the olam delo ka'amalu atem edai. Okay, it's not talking about where Shimon appointed witnesses. What are we talking about over here? The Amalei Chayv Ani Licha Mone Bishtar. Oh, talking about where Shimon wrote into a document. He says, "I Shimon owe Ruvain 100 zuzes," but he didn't sign it. He just writes, "I owe you 100 zuzes," and it's in front of witnesses, but it was never signed. So Rabbi Yochanan Omer says, Rabbi Yochanan Chayiv, that Shimon owes Reuven 100 zuzis. Alima milsa d'shtare k'madamalu atem edim domi. That something that's written in a document is as strong as though Shimon said to these two witnesses, "You are my witnesses, and I'm admitting to Reuven that I owe him 100 zuzis." Rish Lakish Amar Potter. Rish Lakish says he's Potter because lo alima milsa d'shtare. That Rish Lakish says no, that which is written in the document is not so strong, and therefore Shimon does not owe Reuven 100 zuzis. Now we learn in our Mishnah, no says Aisha, that if the fellow marries a woman, ufascha imo, and they make a deal, lozun is bita chomesh, that he supports her daughter for 5 years. Chayiv lozuna chomesh, so he needs to do that. He needs to support her for 5 years. So my lab ki agavna. We want to say that it's talking about this situation, right? Because if it was a document that is in Ksubis and has 2 witnesses on it, obviously he needs to pay for the food. What's the chiddush? So it must be talking about a situation where there was only it was a document where there was only 1 witness on it. So I'm sorry, what? No, it must be a document where there was no signature. So lo bishtari psikta. No, actually, the thing is this commitment to the 5 years, it was in a different document. It was in a document with the Tanoim, right? Separate from the Ksuba, different conditions and deals that the different parties, right, the husband's family side and the wife's side, kind of commit to each other. And part of that separate document was that he would support her daughter for 5 years. And Uchad of Gidel, and it's like Rav Gidel, the Amr of Gidel, Amar Rav, says Rav Gidel, Amar Rav, Kama Atanosin, Levincha Kach V'chach, and how much are you giving for your son? This amount. How much are you giving for your daughter? This amount. Then they are Mekadesh. That's a good, right? So it makes a kinyan. These are things that are acquired verbally. So basically, it's an interesting thing. Yeah, apparently what seems to be going on here is they're not making any kind of a kinyan on it, right? They're not making like a kinyan khalifin or anything like that, right? Okay, whatever. There's no kind of kinyan that's happening here. The husband's side says, okay, this is what I'm giving. The wife's side says that this is that I'm giving. And there's a document there, and there's 2 witnesses and everything on the document, but that's just a document. It's the document there isn't like making the acquisition there any kind of a kinyan. It's just recording these things. Okay, that's what the husband said, that's what the wife said, but that's not that apparently is not considered the any kind of a kinyan or anything. The document itself is just a record of things, I guess. But because these verbal, right, these the husband says I'm going to give this, and the wife says I'm going to give that, and then it happens at the time of kiddushin. So there's like, I guess, a special thing that these conditions that happen at the time of kiddushin are considered they work, and therefore it was as part of that, and that's why they are entitled, and that is why the daughter, right? That's why the husbands have to pay for the daughter's mizonis, because they committed to it in the Tanoim, but it is not because of what we want to say with Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish about this document that Shimon writes to Reuven that he owes money but doesn't sign it, but it's in front of witnesses. It has nothing to do with that. This is a separate thing. It has to do with the Tanoim at the Chasana. Tashma coming here. Because of the Koyin, Shani Chayv l'Chochomish Sloim. Interesting. So you have a fellow. He has a firstborn yingle, and he needs to redeem the yingle from the Koyin. So you give 5 sellers to the Koyin, but he doesn't give 5 sellers to the Koyin. He gives an IOU to the Koyin, right? It says, "Because of the Koyin, Shani Chayv l'Chochomish Sloim." He's being a smart aleck, and he writes in the document, "Koyin, I owe you 5 selas, and he gives that to the kohen. So he needs to give him 5 selas. Uvno eino padui, and his child is not going to be redeemed. Meaning, even though he has to give 5 selas to the kohen, the child is not redeemed. So now here we seem to have his document where he simply wrote. What did he write? He says, "Because of the kohen, shani chayav l'chocham yishloim. I owe you 5 selas," and we're saying, right, that so he has to give him 5 selas of no eino padui, and his child is not redeemed. So now that sounds like it's if it was according to Rish Lakish, who says that such a document is irrelevant, well then when he gives the kohen 5 selas, the child should be redeemed. And yet we're saying, right, because the document is irrelevant, right? It has nothing to do with this document that he's giving him 5 selas, because this document, according to Rish Lakish, if there's no signature, is potter. So then the 5 selas that he's giving to the kohen should be for the pidyon bechor. And yet we're saying that the child is not redeemed. So it would sound like it's like Reb Yochanan, that it's because this document is related to some other 5 selas that he owed, but it's not connected to the pidyon bechor, and then pidyon aben, and then therefore that's why the child is not going to be redeemed. So we say no. Shiny Hasam over there, when it comes to pidyon aben, it's different. The Meshubah Levi D'Oraisa, because there's a shibud mida oraisa. So Rish Lakish says that, look, in general, a document like that would be irrelevant, but because of the fact that it's in the context of pidyon bechor, which is mida oraisa, so therefore it kind of gives validity to the document, and it's considered a valid document that represents kind of a prior debt and not necessarily the pidyon bechor, and that is why the child is not going to be redeemed. But if that's the case, amai kasav, well then why did he write it? Just in order to specify that it's for this kohen. But if you specify the kohen, so then right, if we're considering that, right, if we're taking into effect the shibud d'oraisa, that the validity of the document is based on the fact that it's in the context of pidyon bechor, which is midoraisa, so then why is the child not redeemed? It's like ula de amar ula. Says ula that midoraisa, actually the child would be considered redeemed when the money is given. Why do we say that the child is not redeemed? Well, because we don't want people to confuse it with and say that, right, that you can be poda with a shtar, and therefore, right, with the document alone. So therefore we say that it doesn't work. Amar Rava says, Rav Ketanoi, let's say that the machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish is like the following machlokas Tanoim. Oriv, okay, a guarantor, okay, hayotze acher chisum shtaris, okay. So you have a document, right? A document that says that Shimon owes Reuven money, and then underneath the witnesses who signed the document, underneath that, it says that Levi serves as the guarantor for this loan, and that isn't signed or anything, right? So when you have this document, the document says that Shimon owes Reuven money, and there's witnesses, and they sign the document, but then this part about Levi being the guarantor is not signed. It's just this, right? It just says Levi says he's going to guarantee the loan, but it's not actually signed. So now, so with that document, right? If you're going to collect from Levi, you'd only be able to collect from property that wasn't sold to anybody else, right? Available property, not from nechasim mishubadim. This case came before Rabbi Shmuel Amar Gov Nechasim B'nei, and he says, yeah, you can only collect from available property. Amar lo Benanis, whereas Benanis says Ein Gov lo Nechasim B'nei v'lo Nechasim mishubadim, and Benanis says that, right, that you cannot collect from nechasim b'nei or from nechasim mishubadim. You can't collect at all from Levi. Amar lo lama. So Rabbi Shmuel says to Levi, why? Amar lo, so Levi says, says to Benanis, why? So Amar lo, so Benanis says, if Reuven is strangling Shimon in the market, so Chavero, and Levi sees that Reuven is strangling Shimon. And he says to Reuven, look, Hanachlo, leave him alone, and I'll give you whatever you want. Just leave Shimon alone. Potter. So we say that Levi doesn't actually have to give Reuven anything. Shalal emunas ulvei, because when Reuven lent whatever money to Shimon that he's strangling him about, he didn't lend him the money with the intention that Levi was going to be the guarantor. So it says Ben Nanis here as well, that when, right, this loan, whatever it says in the document, and whatever the witness is signed about, didn't yet have anything about Levi being the guarantor. Levi being the guarantor is only written onto that, and there's no signature on it. So let's say Rabbi Yochanan let's say Rabbi Yochanan, who says that when there is a document that is unsigned and it's given in front of witnesses, so then let's say it's like Rabbi Yishmael, so let's say Rabbi Yochanan, right? So he says it's chayiv. So it's like Rabbi Yishmael, who says that he can collect from the Chosim b'nei Chorin. Rish Lakish who says that he's potter. Damake ben Nanis, he would say like Ben Nanis, who says no, you can't collect it at all. See, aliba de Ben Nanis kuyamalo plige. So with regard to saying that Rish Lakish is like Ben Nanis, that's undoubted. That Ben Nanis says you can't collect it all, and Reb Shimon ben Lakish says that you're potter. But ki plige, where there's a machlokas, is aliba de Rabbi Yishmael, is regarding Rabbi Yishmael, who says that you can collect from the Chosim b'nei Chorin. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yishmael, obviously Rabbi Yochanan, who says it's a good shtar, says you can collect from the Chosim b'nei Chorin. Rish Lakish, but Rish Lakish, who says that by a document that Shimon writes to Reuven that he owes him money but doesn't sign it, Rabbi Shlakish says, Potter, Adkan lo kam Rabbi Yishmael Hasim. The only reason why Rabbi Yishmael says in this particular case, when Levi, it says under the signatures of the witnesses that Levi owes money, Rabbi Yishmael says that he's chayiv from Nechasim B'Rechorin, Hasim Ela de Shaykh le Lishibuda de Oraisa, because an Orev is a din de Oraisa. So, right, a guarantor is a din de Oraisa, so therefore Rabbi Yishmael says that you can at least collect from Nechasim B'Rechorin, from Levi. Aval Acha lo Shaykh Shibud D'Oraisa, but over here there is no Shibud D'Oraisa, right? Shimon wrote on a piece of paper that was unsigned that he owes money to Reuven. It's irrelevant, and therefore Rish Lakish would say Potter. Kufa, we had said earlier. Amr of Gidol Rav says of Gidol named Rav, Kama atanosim levincha kach v'chach. How much are you giving for your son? This amount. V'chama atanosim levitcha. And how much are you giving for your daughter? This amount. Kach v'chach. Amdu v'kitchu, and then they got engaged. Kanu, then it works. Einein advar maniknim ba'amira. These are the things that are acquired just verbally, without any kind of kinyan. Amr Rav says Rav mistabre, because whatever happens at the time of the kiddushin works. That whatever they say and obligate themselves to at the time of Kiddushin works even without a kinyan. Amar Rava says Rava mistav milsa d'Rav v'bito naire, says Rava that what Rav is saying, right, that Rav Gidol is saying in the Rav, that Rav Gidol is saying in the name of Rav, that the Chosin side commits to this and the Kala side commits to that, and they do Tanoim and it works. That's only if the daughter is a naire, the kamate anoya liode, that her father is getting benefit and that he can receive the kesef kedushin because she's only a naira. Ava bulgaris, but if she's an adult, delomati hanoya liode, that the father is not going to be getting her kesef kedushin, she's going to get it herself. Lo, so then this condition would not work. Ve'elohim, what do you mean? Amar Rav says Rav afila bulgaris. Even if she's a bulgaris, it still works. Tilotema achi avi aben ma'anoya also liode. Because what about, if you think about it, what about the chosin side? The father's not getting anything there. So elabai tanoya hanoya dika michas ne'adode kamer makni la'adode. So rather, regardless of if anybody's getting any kind of financial benefit over here, the fact that they're happy that their children are getting married, they are happy to sort of have this work as a kinyan. Ravashi says Ravina to Ravashi, Dvarma lalu nitnu likasev velo nitnu likasev. These things that we said are nicknamed b'dvarim, right? That these things that the Chosin says, well, I'm giving this, the Kala says I'm giving that. So are they allowed to be written down and recorded or not? Amalei lo nitnu likasev. So Ravashi says no, you can't write it down. Eisve. So Ravina asks the kasha, Pikchin ayu kosvin almanas she'ozonas bitcho chamishanim kozman chat imi. But one second, we said in our Mishnah that the husbands, if they're smart, they would write that I'll support your daughter for 5 years under the condition that we're still married. So we see that they do write it. My Kozvin Omer. No, what does it mean that they write it? It means that they say it. The Kari Le Lamir Ksiva, what they call saying, writing in. Yeah, they do. As we learn in the Mishnah, Hakosev Leishto, a fellow writes to his wife, Dinudvarm Einli Benichsaich, I have nothing to do with your property. V'tani Remchia Ha'omer Leishto. Remchia taught if he says to his wife. So even saying could be regarded as writing. Tashma, come in here. And Kosvin Shtari Erisin Vinisuin Ela Midas Shneim. It says that we don't write documents of engagement and of marriage except with the knowledge of both of them. Hamidas Shneim Kosvin, implying that if they, both have intention, both the boy and the girl have intention, we can write it. My lab, Shtari Psikta. And isn't that referring to these Dvarim Aniknim Ba'amira? Is it not referring to the Tanoim? And we're saying that we can write it down. Lo Shtari Erisin Mamish. No, it's actually talking about if you're Makadosh a woman with a Bishtar. If you're Makadosh Bishtar, so it has to be with the intention of both of them. Kedir Papa Rav Shrevia, like Rav Papa and Rav Shrevia the Itmar, was stated, Kosavu Lishma, Bishalomi Daita, if they write a document without her knowledge, Rav Ravina Amrei Mikudeshes, Rav and Ravina say that she is Mikudeshes, or Papa Rav Shrevia Amrei, Ein Mikudeshes, whereas Rav Papa and Shrevia say she's not Mikudeshes because it was without her knowledge. Tashma Komanir, Mesu Benosein, Mesu, that if they died, Benosein Nizonis, Minachosim B'nei. We said that if the husbands died, right? So you had a husband who married this woman and committed for 5 years to support her daughter. Then they got divorced and she married somebody else, and he also committed to for 5 years to support the same daughter. And then these two husbands died. So we say, and Nizonis Minachosim B'nei Chorin. So their daughters, these husbands' daughters, would only be able to collect food from available property. V'hinizonis Minachosim Mishubadim. But she, this daughter of this wife, is able to collect even from Nechasim Mishubadim, because she's considered like a creditor. So if she's considered a creditor, so then she must have, then it must be that they're writing it down. No, it's because they made a kinyan. But 1 second, but if they made a kinyan, so then that should apply to the daughters of the husbands as well. So it's talking about, no, they only made a kinyan for the wife's daughter, but not for their daughters. My psaka, so why are we assuming that this works? So we say, well, she, right, this daughter of the wife was there at the chasana when they made the kinyan, but these girls of the husbands weren't there at the chasana. I guess they weren't born yet. But 1 second, but can't we say that it could theoretically though be talking about a situation where these husbands' daughters were also there? For example, if they got married and then divorced and then remarried, and they had kids together in their first time being married, so then you could have a situation where you have all of the kids there at the time of the of this kinyan. So rather, the daughter of the wife, that there's no Tanai Bezdin for her Mazonas, so then the kinyan works for her. But the daughters of the husbands who, without making this kinyan, they have Tanai Bezdin that they get Mazonas, so the kinyan doesn't apply to them. Migagari, but what, just because they have a Tanai Bezdin, they're worse off? Ella Benosav, Hainu Taima. No, this is the reason why their daughters don't get can't collect from Nechas Mishpadim. Came to Isnu B'Tnai Bezdin Eimar Tzare Atfosinu. So rather, since they have the Tnai Bezdin that they get Mizonos, so we have to be concerned that maybe the father, when he was alive, kind of gave her stuff already, and therefore she cannot collect. Therefore, they may not collect from Nechasim Mishubadim. Okay, said the Mishnah, Lo Yomer Arishin, that the first husband can't say, look, I was going to pay for you for 5 years when I was married to your mother, but we're not married anymore. But rather, no, he still has to go to wherever her mother is and drop off food. Rav Chisda says, if Chisda is also meres, this teaches bas eitzel ima. So we see that the daughter goes by the that the daughter goes with her mother. She doesn't have to stay with the in the father's house. How do you know that this is even talking about an adult? Maybe it's dafka by a minor because of a certain incident that happened to Tanya's that if somebody died and he left a young child with his mother, Yosha Av Omim, and the inheritors of the father say, Yehi Gadol Etzleinu, let this little fellow grow up with us. The imo marries, but his mother says, Yehi Bini Gadol Etzle, I want him to come with me. Manichin also Eitzel Imo, we let him go with the mother. Manichin also Eitzel Roi Liyorsho, and we don't leave him with the heirs. Ma'isa Oya V'Shachatu, Erev HaPesach, there was a story that happened that they killed this kid on the eve of Passover. So this kid was left with people who would inherit him if they kill him, and then they killed him. So we don't want to leave any minors with these crazy people. If that's the case, right, that it was only for that it only applied to minors but not to adults, but the adults actually would have to stay with the other heirs. So then it should say the makom shehi, right? It goes wherever she is, whether she's with her mother or not. What does it mean to where her mother is? No, so it means that the daughter goes with the mother. It doesn't matter if she is a minor or an adult. So they shouldn't both say that they will like chip in with each other, or that fine. So, and it can't be that like one of them pays for. So rather what they do is one of them provides food and the other one gives money. There's a certain, right, Reuven lent his millstone to Shimon, so that Shimon can use it for grinding. The Sophie Aser, and in the end Reuven became wealthy. And he purchased a mill and a donkey, and he could just do it himself. So Hashta Avli Agra. And then Reuben says to Shimon, look, until now I was relying upon you for, my flour, but now I don't need you anymore. I have my own mill and my own donkey. So I'd rather that you give me money instead of flour. And Shimon says, no, I'm going to continue grinding for you. So Ravina Lememer, Anu Mas Nisan. And Ravina thought to say that this is like our Mishnah, right? That look, if he doesn't need the money, so that if he doesn't need the flour, give him money instead. Right? That we said in our Mishnah, both husbands can't say that we'll chip in. Rather, one gives her food, and the other one gives money. So Rav Avira says to Ravina, Midami, these cases are not analogous, they're different. When it comes to this daughter, she's only got one stomach. She can only eat one meal, right? And therefore, it makes sense that one of them gives her food and the other one gives money. But over here, in the case of the flour, Matzi Amalei, Shimon can say to Reuven, Tchon v'zaven, Tchon v'osiv. Grind your own flour and sell it, and then I'll give you flour and you can use that. But that is only, you can only say that if he doesn't have so much business. If Shimon isn't getting so much business, so he could say, look, I'm just sitting here doing nothing. I'd rather, just grind the flour and give you that. But if business is good, and if he's not grinding for Reuven, he'll be grinding for somebody else and making money. If that's the case, then we force Shimon to pay the money, because if he has the money and it's not like he's going to be sitting around doing nothing, well then it's Reuven gets, it works out for Reuven because he can get money instead of flour. He doesn't have to sell his own stuff and then use Shimon's. So it works out for Reuven, and it works out fine for Shimon also, because if Shimon's business is good, so he can just give him money anyway, so it's fine. So in that case, you would have to give Reuven money. Friends, that was Daf Kuf Beis and Masechet Ksubis. So hope you enjoyed. Peace out.